Have you heard about things getting worse and out of hand in the Democratic Republic of Congo? These days, the M23 rebels are destabilizing Congo and fighting to take control of the city of Goma, already having the Goma airport under control. However, the conflict is not limited to Congo only, as Rwanda and South Africa are also involved. South African soldiers were deployed to Congo to assist during the conflict. However, M23 rebels killed South African soldiers and others were taken hostage. This acted as the last nail to the coffin, with South Africa taking the official stance that Rwanda was backing the M23 rebels. The South African president even announced to Paul Kagame that the shooting of South African soldiers was a declaration of war. Things worsened when Paul Kagame threatened South Africa over intervention in Congo. So, what is going on, and are Rwanda and South Africa preparing for war? In this video, let's know about it. What began as a peacekeeping mission has now turned into a volatile crisis, threatening to drag South Africa and Rwanda into a direct military confrontation. At the heart of this escalating situation is the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation long plagued by armed conflicts and foreign interference. The deployment of South African troops under the Southern African Development Community was meant to stabilize the region, but instead, South Africa found itself in a deadly battle with M23 rebels. The conflict took a dramatic turn when 13 South African soldiers were killed in combat. This tragic loss not only exposed the brutality of the battlefield, but also raised critical questions like who was responsible for these deaths. President Cyril Ramaphosa wasted no time in directly blaming Rwanda and its president, Paul Kagame, for supporting M23 rebels. But Kagame hit back, accusing South Africa of intervening in a war it did not fully understand and threatening retaliation if South Africa continued its military involvement. Now, as both nations exchange accusations and threats, the world watches anxiously. Could this war spiral beyond the borders of the DRC, igniting a full-scale regional conflict? And what is the real motive behind Kagame's fierce response to South Africa's intervention? To understand that, you have to know what's happening and its roots. For years, the M23 rebels have been a destabilizing force in eastern Congo, displacing thousands and engaging in brutal clashes with government forces. South Africa, as a leading power in SADC, deployed its troops in December 2023 with the mission of restoring peace. However, instead of containing the situation, South African forces found themselves facing relentless attacks, including grenade explosions, heavy gunfire, and even missile strikes. The mission took a deadly turn when South African troops reportedly surrendered under heavy fire, waving white flags in a desperate bid to survive. This shocking development sent ripples across Africa and beyond. Why were South African soldiers so overwhelmed? According to South Africa, Rwanda had been secretly supporting and arming the M23 rebels, which ultimately led to the deaths of South African soldiers. South Africa's Defense Minister Angie Motshekga made it clear, if Rwanda did not back down, South Africa was prepared to take military action. This was the moment Kagame went on the offensive. His response was complete denial and a direct challenge to South Africa's claims. Kagame not only rejected the accusations, but turned the blame back on Ramaphosa, accusing South Africa of distorting private conversations between the two leaders and lying to the media. The most shocking revelation came when Kagame claimed that South African troops were not killed by M23 at all, but by the Congolese army itself. If this is true, it raises an even more troubling question. Was South Africa misled into supporting a government that was actively working against it? The loss of South African soldiers in eastern DRC sent shockwaves through Pretoria. South Africa, which had sent troops under the SADC banner to stabilize the region, suddenly found itself in the middle of a brutal and unexpected battle. The deaths of its soldiers, one of the deadliest combat losses in South Africa's recent history, sparked public outrage and demands for retaliation. In response, President Cyril Ramaphosa escalated his rhetoric, making it clear that South Africa would not tolerate any further losses without consequences. His Minister of Defense, Angie Motshekga, reinforced this position, stating in no uncertain terms that if they are going to fire at us, we will take it as a declaration of war and we will have to defend our people. This was a turning point. Up until this moment, South Africa had presented its mission in the DRC as a peacekeeping effort, an attempt to help the Congolese government fight against rebel groups destabilizing the region. But by framing the conflict as an act of war, Ramaphosa had effectively shifted South Africa's position from defensive to offensive, signaling a willingness to engage militarily if necessary. The declaration had multiple objectives. First, it was meant to pressure the international community to take a stronger stance against Rwanda and recognize its alleged role in fueling the M23 insurgency. Second, it was a message to Rwanda that Pretoria was not going to ignore the deaths of its soldiers and would take action if necessary. Lastly, it was a show of strength, reinforcing South Africa's status as a dominant military and diplomatic force in Africa. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. If Ramaphosa thought that Kagame would be forced into submission, he underestimated his opponent. Paul Kagame, known for his ruthless strategic mind, did not respond with caution. Instead, he mocked Ramaphosa's warning, dismissing the idea that South Africa had issued any real ultimatum. His response was sharp, saying that if Ramaphosa ever gave him a warning, he must have said it in a language he didn't understand. This was more than just a denial. It was a direct humiliation of Ramaphosa, a calculated insult meant to belittle South Africa's threats and portray its leader as weak. Kagame was challenging Ramaphosa's credibility, making it clear that he did not take his warnings seriously. It was a message not just to South Africa, but to the entire African continent and the international community that Rwanda was not afraid and that South Africa's influence in this matter was irrelevant. But Kagame didn't stop there. He went further, questioning why South Africa was even involved in Eastern DRC in the first place. In his view, South Africa's military deployment was not about peace, but about taking sides in a conflict it barely understood. He openly challenged the legitimacy of the South African-led SADC force, claiming that same IDRC was not a peacekeeping operation, but an offensive military intervention. He said that South Africa was in no position to take on the role of a peacemaker or mediator. With this statement, Kagame made it clear that he did not recognize South Africa's authority in the region. He viewed South Africa's intervention as hostile, and if Pretoria wanted to escalate matters, Rwanda was more than ready to respond. So what happens now? Well, with both South Africa and Rwanda refusing to back down, the question remains, will this crisis escalate into open war? A full-scale military conflict between South Africa and Rwanda would be disastrous, not just for the two countries, but for the entire region. The DRC is already a battleground for multiple armed groups, and if South Africa and Rwanda become directly involved in combat, it could trigger a wider regional war involving multiple African nations. Diplomatic intervention is the most likely outcome, with international and African Union mediators stepping in to de-escalate tensions. However, both Ramaphosa and Kagame have shown a willingness to stand their ground, and unless one side backs down, the risk of military confrontation remains high. If another attack results in more South African casualties, Ramaphosa may be forced to take military action, even if reluctantly. Kagame, on the other hand, has made it clear that he will not be intimidated. This deadlock leaves the region on the brink of an unpredictable and potentially devastating conflict. In all that, the real reason for the battle should not be forgotten. While the official narrative focuses on peacekeeping and regional stability, the reality is far more complex. Eastern DRC is one of the richest regions in the world in terms of natural resources like gold, coltan, uranium, and other valuable minerals essential for modern technology. Reports estimate the worth of these resources to be $24 trillion. Therefore, whoever controls this region controls immense wealth and power. For years, Rwanda has been accused of exploiting DRC's resources, using M23 as a proxy force to secure access to mines and mineral trade routes. Kagame's government has consistently denied these allegations, but UN reports and multiple independent investigations suggest that Rwandan-backed rebel groups are heavily involved in the illegal extraction and export of DRC's minerals. South Africa, on the other hand, has its own economic interests in the DRC. As one of the region's major trading partners, Pretoria sees stability in the DRC as vital to its economic security. This explains why Ramaphosa is determined to maintain South Africa's military presence in the region, not just for peacekeeping, but also to ensure economic influence in a resource-rich region. Kagame understands this, and his aggressive stance against South Africa's intervention is not just about military strategy, it's also about economic control. Neither Rwanda nor South Africa wants a total influence of the other in Congo, resulting in a deadlock where no one is ready to back down. This makes one thing certain. The war in the DRC is no longer just about rebels and peacekeeping. It has become a high-stakes battle for regional dominance, political survival, and control over one of Africa's most valuable territories. The next move could determine the future of not just South Africa and Rwanda, but the entire region. What do you think? What should be done to resolve the conflict in Congo that can bring South Africa and Rwanda into a war? Do you believe Rwanda is backing M23 rebels, opposite to what Paul Kagame says? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on what if Rwanda and South Africa go to war. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.